Live action. Dr. Pinesett here. Thank you guys for hopping on here early. I appreciate you guys showing. Yep. We are talking the med school interview today and what you must do to prepare for interviews. And like most things in life, and most things in pre-med, people do it absolutely wrong. And much of the advice you hear is wrong. So we're going to get it correct today, get it right, and talk to you guys about preparing for this interview. So without further ado, right? Let's get it going. We'll hit the intro and we'll get right to it, guys. Who's ready to learn tonight? Who wants to learn about the med school interview? Who's excited for their prospects for med school interviewing? Let's go.
But stop making excuses. Stop whining. Stop, right? Get at it.
We're going to be here.
No excuses. Just dominate.
So get over to my YouTube channel, guys. TheStudyDoc on YouTube. Get over there. Get live with us. All right, guys. What is up? What is up? We are live action. We are live every Monday, every Wednesday. So make sure you guys come join us, get this live talking and this live chatting. This is the discussion. I want you guys to learn. So we're going to be interactive today. We're going to be making the most of this moment here. So when we talk about the med school interview, before we get to that, quickly, we're live every Monday, Wednesday, 5 p.m. If you guys can be here, come here live. We're doing coaching every Wednesday. Immediately following this video, I'm going to post something on my Instagram. It's going to be a challenge to you guys. If you guys can follow these steps, you are entered to win to be on live with me and get live free coaching with me on this upcoming Wednesday, 2 days from now. So be ready for that. The other thing is that I have steep site-wide discounts on my website, thestudydoc.com, to help you guys during COVID right now, including $100 off of my med school interview course. You can get that discount below in the box. Yes. Who's excited? Karen, hello. Hello. I see you guys. Abdi, I see you. Chaitanya, I see you. Kasim, what up? So Brent's trolling me in the comments box right below. Yeah, 45 minutes left for the final exam, Brent. I got the keyword advice for you. So when we talk about med school interviewing and how you can be successful with your med school interview, what have you guys heard about preparing for the interview? What does it take? What should you be doing? What are the words you hear about preparing for interview season? What do we hear? I'm so excited, guys. I literally just raced home right now. Just got back from the hospital. Had a good day today caring for patients. It was a busy day, but it was a good day. All right, people say dress well, okay? My students say 5-part dialogue, right? All that stuff plays in. When we talk about preparing for interviews, right? I like Sarah said, prepare star interview answers. But what does that mean? What does it mean to be a star? And so when we talk about preparing for interviews, I think what a lot of students hear, right, quite frequently is they hear things like, know your resume, backwards and forwards. Know your resume, know your achievements, know your accomplishments, right? The second thing you hear is know the medical school, know everything about them and all these things. And what I feel like is when you guys hear that, it comes off flat to me. Because what you guys do is you hear, okay, learn my resume. Oh, learn about the school. And so what do? We learn facts. We learn figures, right? And it's kind of what you guys do in studying, where you go into your class and you say, okay, listen, I got to learn all these chapters, all this material. And you sit there and you try to rote memorize all this material. And then you get to the test and it comes off flat because you don't have, right? You've seen everything. You've got a superficial knowledge of it, but you don't have true understanding of it. And it's the same way with the interview in the sense that a lot of students come in and they've memorized their resume. I know what lab I was in. I know what we studied. I know what club I was president of. I know all these things. And I know all about your school, how it was founded and all those kind of things. But then they don't have a meaningful understanding of that information and they can't make that connection on the interview to make it live action for the interviewer. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? There's a difference between knowing your resume and then being able to compel and convince, right, an interviewer with your resume and what you've done. And so what we're going to talk about today is how you can prepare a little bit differently in that same vein, but we can take it to a higher level, right? We can get a little bit more specific with it and we can start understanding how we have to be a little bit, right? We have to bend that corner and come around just saying, know your resume, know the school to do more. And so the very first thing that we have to understand is that the very first part, I think too many students spend time trying to learn about different schools and their missions and what schools are looking for and trying to make themselves fit into a school when they first should be identifying who they are and how they would actually naturally fit, right? And what happens when you're too focused on the school and how you fit in is that you round off your corners, right? It's a round peg, round hole, you're a square peg, and you round off your corners and what's great about you to try to fit into a school. And you dumb yourself down, you dilute yourself, you water yourself down. So instead, I want you guys first to focus on you and who you are. And this starts at this actually starts as a pre-med. I have all my pre-meds, right? We lay out a foundational plan to build this narrative, right? What I call the future doctor narrative, and to lay it all out, right? So we started as a pre-med, we're tracking everything. We're building a story with our activities. And then we get to the application, we continue that, and we understand how to write and how to storytell and how to persuade via writing. And we do it there. And then we translate our application over to interview day. It's much the same because we understand we're clear on who we are and what we have to offer. When we talk about who we are and what we have to offer, we have to recognize that you are not your accomplishments, right? Everyone's got a trophy. Everyone's got a leadership position. Everyone's been in a lab. What you are is what those experiences made you, right? You are the sum of your experiences. That's why medical schools care about it. They don't care about for the experience. Everyone was in a club, but they care about what that club made you, how it shaped you, how it's altered your trajectory and put you on a path to be an amazing physician. And so when you guys go to say, learn your resume, forget the resume, think about what each of these things you've done, what your life has been up to this moment and how it's made you. And then think about 3 things, okay? 3 things. Everybody ready? The first thing is you have to be able to concretely, clearly, concisely state why you absolutely need to be a doctor. Training for medicine, guys, outside of the military, there are very few training pathways that are as difficult as training for medicine. Strenuous, arduous, where they intentionally break you down, where they wear you down, where only the strongest truly survive. That's what medical training is. Then once you become a doctor and as an attending, right, as an anesthesiologist, even now, there's so much to deal with between upset families who are scared about their relatives to patients who are upset because they're you know, like a couple days ago, I had a patient who was upset because her throat was sore, okay, because the tube was in there. But she wasn't excited about the fact that she was an asthmatic who had a difficult airway. We do this crazy airway thing. I secured the airway. She wasn't excited about me keeping her alive. And she was like, oh, my throat is sore. And I was like, oh, gosh, come on, right? So at every step throughout the process, and even once you're a physician, it's challenging. And so if you don't have a clear calling to be a physician and you can't articulate why, oh my gosh, in my deep heart and soul, I need to be a physician, medical schools aren't going to want you because they know just how hard the pathway is. They know, right? You guys have already experienced this in pre-med where some of you guys are already, right? You're thwarted in pre-med. You feel like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Why am I doing this? If you have to think about that, right? If you struggle with that, well, why am I doing this? Man, you gotta get clear on that. Right? It'll help you now as a pre-med get motivated, but it'll help you in the application, it'll help you in the interview. So we got to understand why we need to be a physician. And for me, why I need to be a physician and how this played out for me as an example for you guys is I understood what being a physician meant. And if you go back and you look at my personal statement, and in my application course, I break down my entire personal statement. But what I talked about, some of the things that I bring in, the themes, it was very little about clinical medicine. Because for me, being a doctor, why I needed to be a doctor, had very little to do with the actual clinical aspect of medicine. For me, being a physician, being a doctor, being an MD, being a black male physician meant a lot because it was a symbol. It was an opportunity. It was a degree that would give me the clout, that would give me the label, that would give me the exposure, right? It would give me the credibility to be able to enact change, to be able to inspire, to be able to educate, to be able to move young people who come from similar situations as me to a higher place, to a better place. And so that was me. And as I said it to some of you guys are like, wait a minute, you can't tell medical schools that. You got to talk about how you want to serve patients and all those kind of things. And yeah, that's cool. But the reality is, for some of you guys, that's not the truth. And can we be honest? Can some of you guys be honest about that here? You may not feel like you can be honest with the medical schools, but can be honest here and talk about that. And for me, it wasn't about being clinical. It was about the opportunities to transform young minds. And so I wrote about that, and then I presented that on interview day. And what was amazing was on interview day, when I started talking about that, they could see, oh my gosh, it rang so true. It was so clear. My passion came out, right? My care came out. You could see the fire in me. And my interviews were talking like, oh my gosh, you get so excited. I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm about. And so when they can see that, it comes off authentic, right? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? It's much more like it's solid. It's right in there. And like, oh my gosh, right? It's like when you're having a conversation with a friend versus like, you guys ever have a conversation and you know someone doesn't really like you? You know what I'm talking about? Like they're just talking to you. Maybe like, I don't know. Like I was back to dating. Fellas, you ever been in a place, you're in the club, you're like, yeah, shaking it up, right? And you see a girl and she looks good. You're like, well, I want to be with her. And you go up to her. And then you go up there and she's talking to you. Talking to you. Like, hey, I get you a drink? She's like, yeah, give me a drink. And she's kind of talking to you. You're talking to her mostly, right? And she's kind of giving you a little shoulder, but she's waiting for a drink to come. Deep down inside, right? You're talking, you think something's happening. But deep down inside, you know she's just waiting for that drink so she can get on back to her friends, right? That free drink. And that's sometimes what med school interviews are doing with you guys, is that they are bored to tears with you. They don't understand why you need to be a doctor. They asked you straight up, why don't you be a doctor? Why? And you didn't have a clear answer. And so they're just like, oh, yeah, okay, great. Okay. On to the next question, right? If you say why you want to be a doctor and someone doesn't ask a follow-up question, if someone doesn't exclaim with excitement hearing you say that, you've done it wrong. You haven't gotten clear on why you need to be a doctor. So that's the first thing we have to do. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? Spencer says, I want to be a doctor because I come from 5 generations of blue collar workers and I want to change my stars and give my son the opportunity I never thought I'd get. That's amazing. I love it. I love it, Spencer. That's what it's about. And I have a student who came from the trailer parks, right? Trailer parks. And for her, she was in a situation where her family, right? Talk about blue collar. They were no collar, y'all. No collar, no education. And she came from a town that didn't even believe in science, right? They didn't even believe in evolution. It was crazy. She was telling about this. And she was saying that one of the reasons she wanted to become a doctor was because she stumbled upon a book. And it was written by a female doctor. And it actually wasn't like an inspirational book, but it was a female doctor who wrote it, who was breaking down some sort of medical topic or whatever. And she just said it was so crazy to me because here it was a female, a woman, writing this book and being the scientific expert. And she's like, it opened up my eyes and made me want that. And so she's like, when I said I wanted to be a doctor, my family laughed at me. They scoffed at me. They said it was ridiculous. And they wouldn't even support that she wanted to go to college and help her get some of the money together. And so she ended up getting it all together herself and getting her job done. But for her, becoming that physician, and she wrote about this in her personal statement when she talked about, right, and in her interviews, she talked about how for her, becoming a physician was a symbol to every girl out there who wanted more, but whose families didn't support them, whose families didn't see that was something that they could do. And so she wanted to be a beacon to those girls. And so that's what she talked about. And then, man, the interviewers responded to that. So I feel you when you say that, Spencer. I'm with you. Okay? So the first thing is we have to be very clear on why you need to be a doctor. Very clear on that. The second thing is an interview, guys, just like a date. A date is just an interview, right? It's 2 people sitting there asking questions, answering questions, and figuring out, is this a fit? A med school interview is the same thing. The medical school, as you are talking, so many students forget, they blank out, and they don't recognize at every single moment they're being evaluated, they're being scrutinized, they're being judged on every single thing you say. And so what you have to do, right? We first established why we need to be a doctor. The second thing we have to establish is why a school would need us. Why do schools? You have to go into that interview. If you want to stand out, if you want to separate yourself, you have to be able to articulate to them why that school needs you. What do you bring that no one else has to offer, right? And we talk about med school admissions being 2 Ds. How are you distinct? How are you distinguished? How are you different? How are you better? So when you go in your interview and you're formulating answers, someone said star answers. What does it mean to be a star? It means to be different. It means to be better. Because medical schools want people who are going to elevate their class and people who are going to round out the class and bring in something different. And so when you answer things, when you have these points, when you're talking to medical schools and they're asking you about yourself and your career and what you've been through and what you're looking for in the future, you've got to be thinking, wait a minute. Is this an answer that makes them need me? Is this an answer that makes it clear how I'm different and how I'm better than everybody else they're interviewing? And if your answer doesn't do that, you're missing the mark. Does everybody understand what I'm saying right there? If you aren't clear, right? And what is meaningful to you is not necessarily meaningful to a medical school. What is a great story with your friends is not a great story on a date. So when we go into the medical interview, we have to make it clear why they need us. We have to be unforgettable. So they never don't understand why they need us. And I'll go back and use myself as an example. When I went interviewed, I said, right, that I got into medicine. My need to be in medicine was to transform students, was to be that next, to empower those young students who are coming up. That was what I wanted to do. And when it came for why the medical school would need that, why they would want me, I made it clear that my educational expertise, my knowledge of learning, of neuroscience, of the brain, my knowledge of coaching and mentoring and studying mentoring and studying coaching, because it's an art form. Not everyone can coach, not everyone can mentor, not everyone can teach well. Smart people, but can't teach, right? I invested the time to develop that. And so when I talked to medical schools, I said, listen, I need to be a doctor because I want to empower students. I need to be a doctor because I want to show students that they can be great. And then they need me because I said, not only can I do it for other students, but I'll do it for this medical school. I'll be able to come in and contribute and say, listen, educationally, we can push this forward. And at the time that I was applying, much like the time now, you guys act like everything's new, right? Oh my gosh, curricular reform in medical school. Medical schools have been trying to figure out and trying to modify and trying to improve the way they teach medical students for forever. And it goes back and forth on different things and what we're doing with. But I was able at the time, the big hot topic was flipped classroom. So I was able to talk about, because I'm an expert in problem-based learning, right, which is what flipped classroom is, right, which is, right, and a subset of that is question-based learning, right, which is what we should be using for the MCAT. I was an expert in it. So I could talk problem-based learning theory, right, with these people who are educators and say, well, listen, problem-based learning, that's the future of medical education. If I'm here, I can help you guys implement that and do these things. And I understand that this, blah, blah, blah. And I was able to articulate that. And so if you let me in your medical school, not only will it be great for me, it'll be great for you. It'll be great for your school. Here's what I bring. I can help my classmates understand how to get the most out of case-based learning, out of problem-based learning. I can help my class, all these things. And so it was very clear why a medical school would not only want me, but like, oh my gosh, we've got to have this guy. He's going to make our school better. And that was across the board. They're like, man, it was clear and obvious where you fit in. And so when I went back for second looks at the schools I was admitted to, that I actually wanted to go to, people wanted to talk to me about that. It was on my sheet. It was like a talking point where people knew. And at Stanford, where I eventually ended up going, right, Dean Proper, who's still there, Dean of Education, came up to me and was like, Andre, my education guy, we need you. I see you doing these things while you're here. Boom, 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 boom. And when I was there, right, everything he said that he foresaw for me came to fruition. So I was on the curriculum committee. I got to shape curriculum. I was on the committee that evaluated case-based learning and problem-based learning and implemented flipped classrooms and presented, right, novel modalities for learning at a medical school, including we had study hours where literally it's like a happy hour. You go, there's high top tables, and you go and you discuss, instead of discussing like common, popular topics, you discuss medical topics. You have faculty members there. You have senior medical students. You have younger medical students. We go and we congregate and we learn in a casual, near peer, far peer environment. And so we were able to troubleshoot and try all these different things. I enriched, right? I lived it, but it was true. But I explained to them how they needed me, and then it all came to fruition. Okay? All right. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? And the cool thing I'll say about these first two things, if you understand why you need to be a doctor, you understand why medical needs you, what's really, really awesome, and this is also going to be our third point, is that everything you're saying is true. Everything you're saying is real, and people will relate to that. People will connect with that. People will root for you, which is what you need. You need people in the committee room rooting for you, not just like, oh yeah, I remember. No, it's gonna be like, no, we gotta have him. That's what you want them saying about you. But what's cool about this is people are rooting for who? When people are rooting for you to come there based on your why you need to be there and then why they need you, they're rooting for the truest you there is. It sucks, and it's like being in a relationship. How many of you guys ever been in a relationship where the person you were with, you felt you couldn't be yourself with? Am I the only one who had this bad relationships? I'm only in bad relationships. Come on, y'all. Who's ever been in a relationship where you felt, it wasn't spoken, but you felt like you couldn't be yourself? There was just some reason you felt like they didn't love you for you. They didn't appreciate you. You had to be different than who you really are. Who knows what I'm talking about? Right? Marlena said that's the worst feeling. right? Exactly. Don't be catfishing these med schools. But how many of you guys feel that way? You can't let your hair down, right? You got to eat salad every time you show up. I dated a girl. This is like when I became anti-vegan people, because I'm all down for everybody's rights. You have the right not to eat meat. You have the right not to eat dairy. All that stuff. Cool. But just because you don't partake doesn't mean I can't partake. I don't need you to narrate my entire meal and talk about how the animals were killed to make this and how I'm eroding the Earth's atmosphere by eating a steak. I like steak. Leave me alone. Like, you have your choice, vegan, and I don't want to be vegan. So let me eat my steak in peace, right? So that's a horrible, horrible feeling. And when you apply to medical school disingenuously, maybe not intentionally, right? But you're trying to copycat what people tell you you're supposed to do. When you go and interview disingenuously, it becomes so pressured. You feel like on interview day, you have to remember all these things. Oh my gosh, I can't say this. I got to say this. It makes the day much more nerve-wracking. It makes the experience much less enjoyable. But when you're being yourself and you're being true, it becomes so amazing because you don't have to remember anything because you're speaking from the heart. You don't have to put on and feign excitement and engagement and eagerness because you are eager. You are ready to do these things. So it's a much better interview experience. And if you guys talk to some students, they talk about how they got worn down on the interview trail. I had a bomb time on the interview trail. So much fun. So much fun. I was freaking people. After I got my first acceptance, you guys remember last week we talked about this. If you guys haven't seen that, go back and watch part 1 where I talked about my interview season and everything went down. But my first acceptance was Northwestern. After that, guys, I know some of you guys think I'm an a-hole. And I'll acknowledge it, right? I'm confident. But once I got my first acceptance, you guys can't imagine the amount of confidence I had going in interviews where I was just freaking them. I was just out there saying, I'm like, what kind of stuff can I say and get away with in this interview? Because I had that sort of confidence because I was just going to be me. And either they want me from me or they don't want me and I don't need you. That's what you guys want. You want to be confident that who you are is enough. And it truly is if you've done the work. If you prepared, you is enough, baby. You is enough. They want you. So that's the first two things. The third thing, okay? And I think that a lot of people mess this up. The third thing you need to do is make it clear why the world needs you as a doctor. Why you need to be a doctor is different than why the world needs you to be a doctor. Do we see how those are two different things? And so oftentimes when someone asks you why you want to be a doctor, you lead off with it's only focused on the why you want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to be a doctor because I want to provide patient-centered care and right? You hear this over and over again. I want to provide care that's sensitive and direct. I want to provide care that's the most compassionate. You hear those things, right? But does the world, or is there a dearth of compassionate doctors? It can be argued, but what you need to be able to do is you've got to go above that remedial answer. You've got to go beyond that and really concretize specifically why the world needs you, why you have something unique, something powerful to contribute as a doctor. It's very important. And for me, right, to use me as an example, again, when I was going in and they would ask me why I want to be a doctor, I would talk about my passions and why I need to be a doctor because this would give me the credentials, the credibility to be able to make moves and really change people's lives in the classroom and even outside the classroom because if you guys can learn how to learn, right? If you learn well, your world's your oyster, right? So I can change people's lives. But then I said, let's flip it back, right? Why does the world need me as a doctor? Why is the MD specific? Because yes, I could go be a teacher. Why is the MD specific? I said, because medicine and the way we structure clinics, the way we interact with patients, we need people who understand education because a physician in this world, at that time, right, back in the day, right, at this time, right, when I was talking to them in interviews, I said, at this time, we're at a critical junction in medicine. And actually, I feel like we've lost this battle, but that's for a topic for another day. Actually, we'll talk about it right now. But so we'll get into this answer. My argument was we live in an era, it's the internet era, where all of our patients are inundated with information. Not only do they have access to all this information if they search it, but they get targeted with information. And a lot of times this information is biased, this information is incomplete, or this information is flat out erroneous. And so, as the physician, not only do I have a duty to know my stuff, but it's going to be incumbent to create buy-in amongst patients that we are effective educators and we can make it clear why that thing they read or their friend told them about is not what they need, right? Why they shouldn't drink bleach to stop COVID, right? We have to explain to them how masks work effectively to prevent COVID. Do you guys understand? Do you guys remember that when that article came out and they were like, oh, masks don't work, we're not sure what they do. If you guys looked beyond the headline, what you would have seen was surgical masks worked. All the crap y'all put with the decorations and the studded diamonds, that crap, the cloth mask, that didn't work, right? The neck bandanas, whatever, didn't work. But surgical masks work, have been proven to work. That's why we wear them in the operating room. So the disconnect in the population was, wait a minute, masks don't work was the headline. No. The reality is most of the masks that people were wearing and are still wearing don't work. And so as physicians, we have to be prepared to effectively educate people and break through the noise and make what is complex, what is difficult to understand, very simple. You guys want to break it down? Talk about it. You guys are, oh, well, masks don't work, it's questionable. Why do we cover our mouths when we cough? Why was that like the first thing you learned as a kid? Cover your mouth when you cough. When you sneeze into the sleep. Why do we do that, guys? Why are you taught to do that? I'll wait, guys. We're live action. I am an educator, right? So I have to make you guys think because I know all this stuff. I got into medical school. So you've got to think. If you're going to be here with us, you're here to learn. If you're here to learn right now, like this video. If you are learning right now, like this video. We're only here to learn and get better. If this ain't you, you need to get on. But if it's you, like the video right now. Let me understand you're here and you're learning. You understand where we're at. Right? It's obvious. You cover your nose and mouth because you don't aerosolize all the particles everywhere and get everyone sick. So then why is it so difficult for people to understand if I put on a legit mask, it functions as a barrier to particle spread? Yes, it's not entirely 100%, but if you put something over your mouth, a lot less particles are going to be spread. It's obvious, right? Like, I don't but this is the problem with the internet. And this is what I articulated to medical schools forever ago. This is what, over a decade ago. I articulated that, listen, we're at a time where the internet and posers and people are out here, right, purporting that they know stuff. And so it's important. The problem we're having is that physicians are too up in the clouds and don't know how to effectively educate their patients, to empower their patients with the right information and the right understanding of the information to make the right decision. There's a big difference from knowing medicine and being able to talk about it intelligently and coherently with a patient. You guys have heard doctors talk over a patient's head, right? Everyone's heard, yes, the lymphatic system has actually, like, right? We've all heard doctors do this. The ACE inhibitor receptor of the particle of your hypertension is your hypercholesteremia. Like, what? What is cholesteremia? What does that mean? Right? We've heard that. How many of you guys have had smart teachers? I went to Stanford Medical School. We had Nobel Prize winners teaching classes. And some of these Nobel Prize winners were the worst teachers I ever had. Smartest people in the world, bad teachers. Because there's a difference between doing something, knowing something, and be able to translate that knowledge effectively to someone else. And that's what I said I have to offer this world as a physician, that my patients will be clear on what needs to happen. My patients will say, oh, I have a complete understanding of that, and will be able to make those decisions, will be better to stay on their medications and to be, right, compliant with things. That's how I'm going to serve patients. So I talked about being, right, a disseminator of information and helping patients become educated as a health educator. And so that's what I have to offer. And you guys can see, right? Like I say that and then I back it up with all the things I've done in my career that evidence that I'm already that educator. So then it becomes obvious that I will do that as a physician and why they need me. Are we clear? It's 3 things. It's simple enough, but I feel like it's deeper than what you guys tend to hear. It's more specific and it's definitely more powerful than know your resume, know the school. No. Needs, y'all. Why you need to be a doctor, why that school needs you, and why the world needs you as a physician. And if you can articulate those 3 things, and I saw someone's comment and they were asking, well, should this all be in one sentence? Never. You never want a monologue in an interview, right? So you guys all have elevator speeches like, oh, prepare your elevator speech, have your answers prepared. No, I hate the elevator speech because I'm contrarian. Because I recognize that everyone's gonna come into the medical school with some long, drawn out answer when they say, tell me about yourself or why medicine. So what I teach my students to do is what I call a 5-part dialogue. So we break down, right, who we are in story form into 5 main points. And then we use this to seamlessly control the conversation with hidden, right, covert and overt calls to action. And so my students execute the 5-part dialogue to control conversation. So what you want to do is you want to piecemeal the conversation to maximize, to pique their engagement, keep them interested, and not overwhelm them with the sheer volume of words you're spitting at them, where it turns into a one-sided conversation. So you guys, there's a link in the box below. It's $100 off my med school interview course where you can learn my entire 5-part dialogue, my entire interview system. But I highly recommend you guys checking that out, learn some more. So $100 off, check it out in the box below. But that's what I would say. So when we talk about these 3 things, they don't all have to come out at once, but you have to be clear on how you're going to get to these 3 points and to control the conversation in such a way that you funnel it all the way down and you're able to hit all your talking points that you want. And that's what happens, right? You guys hear about medical interviews and people not being able to get off, right, the points they have. Right? They have these great talking points, but they don't know when to use them. And the problem is you have to create the opportunities to use them by taking control of the conversation. And you want to be able to take control of the conversation so that the interviewer doesn't know you're in control, but really you can predict what's going to be asked, what's going to be said, and you literally have the whole conversation mapped out in your head. And that's what the 5-part dialogue does, guys. So these 3 things. Someone said, hopefully you keep your channel when I apply for med school in 3 years. That's actually kind of a funny point because it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, right? And being an educator versus being someone who knows something. There are lots of physicians who are on the internet, guys. As we talked about why I became a physician, I am dedicated to helping students. This is like, I've been doing this. I've had my channel for years and years and years and years now. I think since 2016. And it will continue to go on and on and on because this is my life's work. I'm on a mission, right? To empower 1 million students. And so you guys, when you come here, right, we can do a live for 33 minutes. I don't have to do a 3-minute video. I have to do a 15-second TikTok because in 15 seconds, I can't get in all this in 15 seconds. We've got to go deeper, right? If we want to separate from the pack, we've got to go that, right? What's the expression? Go the extra mile because there's nobody else there. Something like that. That's what we're trying to do here, guys. We're trying to go the extra mile and get there. All right, everybody. I hope you guys had a great time tonight. Don't forget, I'll be posting on my Instagram after this, letting you guys know how you guys can get on for coaching with me on Wednesday. And we'll be live for coaching on Wednesday. And then tonight, I'll have that post there for you guys. We'll be back next Monday, continuing the med school interview. Next week, we'll be talking about executing and making a great first impression. So it's going to be interview, first impression, how you can, right, solidify. And because what's great about a first impression, if you guys can make a good first impression in a med school interview, it's all downhill. So you start high, you can make flubs. It doesn't matter because you're working from a high point. But a bad first, second, woo, man, it's all uphill to get there. So that's the deal. That's the drill. People are posting the link is dead right now. Yeah, I'm actually currently, as I'm doing this live right now, my other computer's over here, and I'm updating the website right now. So there's the new Dominate Premed course is being uploaded right now. So we have some updates happening on the website. So don't worry about that. It'll be up in a second here. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys coming on live with me. Take a second. If you enjoyed this, like the video. If you were new to me, make sure you guys subscribe. Toggle the bell to turn on live notifications so you can be here live with us. We got a bunch of you guys Our total attendance today, we're almost at 200 people. Awesome. I really appreciate that. I like that. People signing off, signing on. But everybody, have a great day, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. Live action, guys. Good night.